Hello and welcome to Joy of Books with me, Miss Joy. Today's offering is the science fiction classic, The Island of Doctor Moreau by H.G. Wells. Released in 1896 and totaling 160 pages, the book is often cited as a major influence on the genre of science fiction. Sharing his views on the book today is author and teacher T.C. So T.C., tell us about this famous book.
Yes, thank you, Miss Joy. The book is about an Englishman with a background in science. His name is Edward Prendick, and he finds himself shipwrecked, rescued by this boat which contains lots of animals in cages and so forth. And the owners of these animals are these two mysterious characters, quite elderly gentlemen, a Montgomery and Dr. Moreau of the book's title. So Dr. Moreau is kind of this original mad scientist character, and he has this knowledge of vivisection, which actually had him forced to leave England when he was working on experiments there. So there is this sense of mystery from the very outset of this classic novel. The main character, Prendick, obviously sees things that he feels he shouldn't have seen on this island. For example, he sees a puma being cut up and operated on. He jumped to the conclusion that it's humans that Dr. Moreau is working on rather than animals. So he gets this real paranoia and sense of fear, and it really comes across in the writing of H.G. Wells. Of course, H.G. Wells, absolute master of science fiction, certainly highly recommended in terms of the great stories that he has produced. But this one really centers around the idea of, changing the evolution and the kind of prophetic horror that can cause. So Prendick obviously initially disgusted at the idea of these creatures, these hybrids, or beast folk, as he calls them. And of course, the theme of pain and cruelty, moral responsibility and identity all interweave really as we read this novel. Certainly the idea of humans interfering with nature and the effects and trauma that can lead to would certainly resonate. In terms of the quality of the writing, you have to remember it's in 1896, so there's the slight archaic word in there, but nothing that would cause too much trouble for the modern reader. So after these adventures, scary adventures on the island, and everything that entails, he returns to London. But unfortunately, the main character is no longer comfortable with living in the presence of humans, and he ends up retreating to the countryside. So again, this would certainly be something that people around the end of the 19th century would be concerned about, the ethical and moral issues of vivisection, cutting up animals. But if you look at how that is still evident in society now, if you look at animal testing, for example, these are issues that have not really gone away. And of course, we now have the even more ethical and moral issues of artificial intelligence, and different forms of changing or intervening in ecosystems. So I would say that the book is still relevant to the modern reader for sure. After all, it's about the human condition and that idea of interfering with things that maybe we shouldn't be interfering with. So the idea of uplifting will be the counter argument, developing races and different animal species to bring them to a higher level. But of course, Prendick's disgust at these hybrid creatures really turns back on the idea of his fear and disgust at the humans who actually go to great lengths to create them. Yeah, really good read. I would certainly say it's worth a look. Of course, many science fiction texts have perhaps overtaken this type of book in recent decades. I'm thinking of Michael Crichton's The Lost World, for example. But I think we have to remember that those books of the modern era can already be traced back to H.G. Wells's The Island of Doctor Moreau. So for that reason alone, I would suggest that it's well worth a read.
Well, thank you very much for your review of the book, TC. It certainly sounds like an interesting read and one that perhaps extends beyond mere lovers of the science fiction genre. The Island of Doctor Moreau by H.G. Wells is available from all good book outlets. Thank you for joining me, and please remember to like and subscribe to my channel, Joy of Books.